The story of Gorgo starts with three brothers, Frank, Maurice, and Herman King. They were film producers who had been turning out B-movie westerns and crime pictures since the early 1940s, and by the late 1950s, they had a track record of finding profit in projects that major studios would never even bother with. When they picked up American distribution rights to Toho's Rodan in 1957, they watched it perform extremely well at the box office and thought, hey, let's make a giant monster picture of our own. This is what spawned Gorgo. Though the film that would reach theaters in 1961 looked nothing like what the Kings originally had in mind. The brothers brought in Eugene Laurie to direct, a filmmaker who had already sent a rampaging dinosaur through a major city twice before. First with The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms in 1953, and then with The Giant Behemoth in 1959. According to Laurie, his own daughter was upset after watching the dinosaur die at the end of 20,000 Fathoms, and that really stuck with him. So going into his next monster picture, he didn't want the monster to die at the end. He wanted something that people would root for. So with Gorgo, he really wanted something that was sympathetic. Surprisingly, given how standardized the man-in-a-suit monster movie had become by decade's end, that small shift towards sympathy is a large reason why Gorgo still plays a lot differently than its contemporaries. The film is a lot less cruel. Early planning had it as a Japanese co-production with the story set on a fictional Pacific island called Kuru. The monster was captured by pearl divers and eventually shipped off to a Tokyo zoo. Thus, the monster would have broke loose and rampaged, a la King Kong. When the Japanese financing fell through, the King brothers shifted the entire production to Paris, and only after that arrangement also collapsed did the story settle into the version that audiences know today, with the setting being moved to London and MGM coming abroad through its British studio at Elstree. Principal photography began there on September 14, 1959. The film's screenplay was credited to John Loring and Daniel Hyatt, though those were just pen names for Robert L. Richards and Daniel James, who were writers working under assumed credits during the Hollywood blacklist years, a period that the King brothers navigated more comfortably than most because they had already been hiring blacklisted writers throughout the 1950s. The special effects fell to Tom Howard, a two-time Academy Award winner who developed a process for the film called automotion, combining traveling matte work with split-screen compositing to get the monster into the same frame as the actors and the miniature sets. Freddie Young shot it in Technicolor, the only one of Laurie's three dinosaur pictures made in color, and Young would go on to win his own Oscar years later for Lawrence of Arabia and Dr. Zhivago. The Irish location work, including the scenes set on the fictional Nara Island, was filmed at Collymore Harbour in County Dublin in November 1959. The production built two identical monster suits, one for Gorgo and one for his considerably larger mother, Agra, or Ogra, or Orga. No, not Orga, different monster. Gorgo premiered in Hong Kong on December 24th, 1960, ahead of its American rollout, which would then begin in Philadelphia that February before opening wide across the US on March 29th, 1961. The British release didn't arrive until that October. I swear, these international movies are so bizarre with their release schedules back then. On a budget somewhere in the range of $1.5 to $2 million, the film turned a modest profit, though it didn't become a massive cultural fixture like Godzilla or King Kong in Japan or America, respectively. A lot of people like to say this is Great Britain's Godzilla, and I think that's kind of the best it's ever going to get because, I don't know, it's fine.
That's annoying.
But before getting into the movie itself, I think we should talk about Gorgo's bizarre copyright history. Plenty of people who've encountered this movie assume it's public domain. I thought it was public domain. It's not. Charlton Comics launched a Gorgo tie-in comic book alongside the film's release, and that comic series ran for years afterward, sending the character on adventures with nothing to do with the movie's plot. Comic books from that era needed a very specific, formally worded copyright notice to hold on to their protection, and Charlton got very sloppy about it more than once. Researchers who've dug through the Gorgo comics believe a number of those issues lack proper notice and may have lapsed into the public domain, which that copyright is separate from whatever protection the film print itself actually carries. So in short, Gorgo, the comic book character, is public domain, but not Gorgo the movie. It's a lot like how the novelization version of King Kong is public domain, but the actual movie version of King Kong is not, and that's a rabbit hole for another day. Let's just get into the movie. The film starts with Joe Ryan. No, not the pitcher on the Twins. Captain Joe Ryan and his first officer, Sam Slade. They're salvaging off the coast of Ireland when an undersea volcanic eruption forces their damaged ship to dock at the small Nara Island for repairs. There they discover a massive prehistoric sea creature freed from the depths, and after capturing it, they sell the animal to a London circus for exhibition. Dubbed Gorgo, the creature turns out to be a juvenile, and its 200-foot-tall mother soon rises from the sea to tear through London, searching for her missing offspring. If you solely judge this flick as a Godzilla knockoff, Gorgo holds up remarkably well. I'm not trying to give a backhanded compliment here. I'm being honest, it's pretty good. I would say that the suitmation is nowhere near what Toho was doing at the time, but for what it is, I'm thoroughly impressed. But calling it a Godzilla knockoff does it a disservice. This is a King Kong knockoff through and through. Sure, it's not a giant gorilla, but this story is basically just King Kong, where characters go to an island, grab a creature from said island, bring it back to the mainland, and surprise, surprise, it goes on a rampage. The creature action itself has aged pretty well, all things considered. I love how so much of this movie is dedicated to the monster tearing through London. Everything about how it's staged has a real sense of scale to it. I'm thoroughly impressed by everything that we see here. The way that the buildings collapse and the way that Battersea Park gets flattened and Big Ben and Tower Bridge take damage, it's all wonderful stuff. The monster suit design itself is where the film really delivers. It looks fantastic, with a texture and silhouette that really makes it feel like a living creature as opposed to just a man in a suit. And I think a lot of that is because of Freddie Young's Technicolor photography. I also love that this story is being filtered through a British and Irish perspective. It's pretty rare for the era since the overwhelming majority of giant monster movies from this time period came out of either Japan or the United States. The Irish fishing village atmosphere early on, followed by the London landmarks getting destroyed, gives the film a regional identity that Toho's Tokyo-centric pictures and the American landmark destruction sequences never had a reason to even try to replicate. Surprisingly, few filmmakers outside of Japan and the US ever attempt this genre, especially at this time, so it just makes Gorgo stand out from the bunch. Unfortunately though, where Gorgo falls flat is the human side of things, which is common for a lot of giant monster movies that came out around this point in time. Joe Ryan and Sam Slade are stock adventurer types with barely any personality whatsoever. The harbor master is just this gruff figure. The orphan boy is just there for sentimental filler. It's not good. The performances are fine at best, but none of them give you a reason to care about what happens to these people once the monster shows up. The film does spend a good chunk of time on them, but like I said, most of the runtime is dedicated to destruction, and I can appreciate that. If anything, though, it's worth checking out just for the monster destruction sequences and for that regional identity of Ireland and Great Britain. I'm Cole McCormick, you're watching Firewood Media, and I want to know, what do you think? Have you seen Gorgo? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Let me know down below in the comments. Big thank you to channel members for supporting the channel. For $1.99 a month, you could have seen this video early before the general public. You'll also have access to exclusive videos and the Discord server. Either way, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.